Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Today, my guest on our show is Trevor Park. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. This is a long time coming. I've been watching your stuff and listening to your stuff for a long time, so I'm really appreciative of you having me on the show.
Glad to have you here. Just for those of you in the audience, a few of you that don't know Trevor yet, he's a vice president at Rent Dynamics. Trevor, I want to start by giving you the chance to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, personal, professional, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. Trevor Park. I've been in the industry for probably close to 10 years now, and I've been in a few different roles. I've been both on the operator side with Greystar and Pinnacle, which is now Coach Wake, and then I've also been on the supplier side. So working in prop tech has been kind of the big focus, and then also some AI chatbot as well. And then now, most recently, Rent Dynamics, and really happy to find a good home here.
So how did you end up in multifamily, Trevor?
Let's see. This actually, I would blame Curtis Cardoza, who's now, I believe, with Easy Street Media. But he was actually working at Holland at the time, and we took a social media class at the University of Washington together. And I had mentioned that I need more than just one brand to focus on, and I need to have a little bit of variation in what I do. And he's like, you should try multifamily. It's going to have a whole bunch of branding projects at once. And he actually was interviewing at both Greystar and Pinnacle, and got the job at Pinnacle. And he's like, you should try and take my interview slot at Greystar. And so we reached out. Megan Hill was like really accommodating. It was like, yeah, come on in, have a presentation ready. And then that's how it happened. It just fell right in, and worked with like Stephanie Robichaux, Ali Henning, Lacey DeVella, out of the Seattle office. So it was really fun.
Trevor, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your current role. I'm sorry, at Rent Dynamics. What do you do for them, and then what are some great things that are happening at Rent Dynamics?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm the VP of marketing for Rent Dynamics, and it's a catch-all for all things marketing. I have an awesome team that we're also growing. Right now, we have a field marketing specialist. His name's Bryson. We have a marketing specialist named Sam, and we have a marketing manager that we just hired named Catherine. And the way that we really have focused our marketing org is towards revenue, and with the go-to-market team that's led by Mike Wolber, our CRO. And our focus is, how can we enhance what sales is doing? How can we enhance what our account management team is doing? And then we have the company brand as well that we support. A lot of different projects that we're kicking off this year. Like most recently is the 2023 Trends Guide that we launched. That one, I didn't expect it to be as impactful as it was, but we've had over 4 million impressions on it, which is really cool. So definitely a lot of growth in kind of creating some really strong partner-based content, and that's kind of the focus that we'll have for the year is, who can we team up with, who can we help support and shout them out as well as we lift everybody else up. So it's been really fun.
You mentioned the 2023 Multifamily Trends Guide, which, by the way, I was a part of it too. Thank you for having me on. How did the idea come about? And tell me about, tell us some insight, share some insight. How did this came about, and how did it turn into a project, and how did you end up with such a great visibility? 4 million views. It's just something impressive.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was playing around with Chat GPT and kind of trying to figure out like how can I use this to generate content or content ideas. And I asked it, I'm like, what's a piece of content that people really resonate with at the start of the year? And it came out with a list of 10 things, one of which was a trends report. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so I started doing some Google searching to see if anybody does like a trends report that's specific to multifamily. And there's a few like smaller pieces and stuff, but they're all from, I feel like a singular lens. And it's like just their focus on what trends are going to happen versus like the greater whole. And so I just started dialing for dollars and asking if somebody wanted to participate. And so I think it was like the day after Christmas, maybe a couple days after Christmas, and I started DMing and texting people saying, hey, I'm going to try and put this thing together in about a week. Are you interested? And everybody was really, really on top of it. And so they got me a lot of good content that I just spliced together and shipped it out.
If I had to guess, Trevor, you mentioned that things are typically one-sided. A company does a research, they use people from their own company to to speak on the trends or whatever the subject might be. It's very rare when I see collaboration across the industry. You even brought people on from your competitors, people that do provide the same services as your company does. You brought them on and you gave them a voice, which I think it's absolutely remarkable. I think there's a lot of value in collaboration, and it's also a lot of value in teamwork, doing things together versus competing against. There's a wealth of opportunities out there for all of us that, yeah, we are competing with each other, but we don't have to, kill each other in the process. There's enough for all of us, right? So
exactly.
What's your take on that?
I mean, it's the adage, a rising tide raises all ships. So if I can help support everybody to lift up and get to a certain level, that's my goal. I want to be able to connect people to other people. I want to be able to provide solutions to everybody. And I'm not always going to have the solution or the answer. And I guarantee that like Alex Howe, like that, he's with Funnel, and I really love picking his brain on stuff, and we talk frequently. And I think that's something that I've never had in a role before this. And I think coming to Rent Dynamics, where there's just like this mentality of better together, and it's one of our pillars, that it's something I can really strive for and connect people. So it's just kind of having that mentality that everybody can help solve the greater problems versus individual stuff.
I think this is truly amazing, and I look forward to see your next projects, collaborative projects. I think there's a lot of value in that, and 2023 will be a year where we'll see a lot of collaboration and a lot of great things out there in the market. Trevor, the next topic that I want to touch on with you is, you've been in an executive role, and there's people aspiring to step up to an executive role. What type of advice would you have for someone that their target is that their goal is to actually arrive to they're striving for becoming an executive for a company? What type of advice, and what are the things that help you, or traits that help you get to the position that you're in today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend going the route that I went, because I was very noisy when I wanted to get promoted, or if I wanted to step up, and I probably didn't do it the most conducive way for management. I really wanted, I saw myself in a role like this, and I kept working at it. And I think some of the big things is, like, one is networking is probably the biggest thing. After I was laid off at the start of the pandemic, I leveraged my network to do odd end jobs across multifamily. I think I had 45 clients at one point, where I was juggling different marketing efforts and different projects, and it really helped me get more connected in the industry, especially in a time when there wasn't a lot of job opportunities. And so just being able to do contract work really helped me kind of get a feel for what was out there. And it also opened me up to the supplier side. Like, I had one initial job on the supplier side, and I got laid off from it. And so I was a little tainted, but I kept working at it, and I kept getting more involved with the projects. And if you come from the operator side, and you want to jump into a role where your experience is like really, really valued, like the supplier side, they need multifamily experience. They want that experience to come in. And so that's been really helpful for me to come in with the couple years that I have on the operator side, and leverage that to really understand what my target persona is, which has been nice.
My background has been in maintenance, and then I stepped up into management, managing portfolios and things of that nature. So maintenance is really a thing that's very close to my heart. I do wanted to ask you, because you worked on operations side too. Do you see any value in the service teams and the maintenance teams being incorporated in a company marketing efforts when we're talking about management companies? What is the value? What type of value are the service teams bringing to the table when it comes to marketing efforts?
I mean, first and foremost, it's giving a voice to the roles. I think with the struggle that the industry's been having and finding good people to fill those roles, I think being able to highlight the ones that are currently in it, like what you're doing, the platform that you have to be able to talk about your experience and the industry from a lens of service and maintenance has been like, there's not a lot of people out there talking about it. And I think being able to open them up to more marketing campaigns, like if you have a really talented maintenance person, get them on TikTok, have them start doing like how-to guides and this is how you fix that. Have them on your resident portal with like, here's how you clear out your drain clog. Here's how you plunger your toilet. Here's how you fix your shower head. Like very basic tasks, but showing them and having them have that voice so that it can, one, make their job easier because people have the resource now available to them. But then two, it gives them more of a platform to draw more people in and say, hey, that's actually a role that I would really like to do. And I do that well. So yeah, I think there's a huge value in it. I think having more maintenance staff talk about what they're doing and how they value their role is going to be kind of what brings people back into that industry specifically for that.
So attention, it's one of the things that you mentioned. You don't phrase it this way, but you're basically mentioning attention. You're drawing attention to you, to your brand, to your company brand. Sales need attention. If you want to sell, you want to get your potential customer attention. Now, recruiting is sales. You're selling the jobs that you're selling to your potential applicants are products. They are a product. I think it's, do you agree with this? Do you agree with the statement?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. Please.
Yeah. My first experience actually was when we were hiring for a role when I was at Pinnacle. We were hiring for our marketing manager to support Oregon. And I went to our sales reps. Like our sales reps are the ones that had their pulse on everything. They knew who wanted to move. They knew who had maybe just left a job. They knew who had openings. And so ever since then, like my favorite go-to person is actually Kimberly Cameron. I'll send her a text being like, hey, I have these headcounts and I'm not going to post them yet. Do you know anybody that's looking for a marketing role? Or I have 3 leasing agents that I just met with that are looking to make a shift into property manager. Do you know anybody that's hiring? And she's like so well connected. She's always the go-to for me. And so like I see that happening more and more with sales. Like Mike Wolver, our CRO, like I'm pretty sure if he were to start a tally of the number of people that he's helped connect into roles, he'd fill up an entire wall. Like that kind of stuff is really huge to see how sales is not only just using their platform to sell, but they're using it to connect, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, when it comes to recruiting, what I'm mostly seeing, right? Most management companies, it's LinkedIn and the other social media platforms. They're being flooded with vanilla content, very sanitized, very sanitized. There's no soul in it. You're looking at it and it looks like plastic. It feels like plastic. Everybody uses the same canvas. They just change, a few colors and a few words on a text, and they're flooding the internet. The reality is that, once you see that type of approach, you as a candidate, they all look the same to you. So, you tend to look the other way. Wouldn't be better for management companies to embrace a different approach, to do maybe more raw content? I understand the impact that, raw content could have on a company brand, because, hey, we don't want to, this is our brand, we pay for it, want to keep it consistent. But when it comes to like side jobs that openings to service manager, maintenance technician, or a groundskeeper, do something fun, share something about what's going on at your property versus just putting a camera up and hoping that all of a sudden people are going to come breaking down your door, dying to work for your company to fill your positions. Do you think there's any value in it? Just being different?
I definitely think being unique in your approach is going to be the way that you stand out. I think the tough part, and this is where like we could get into like a topic of like centralization. We could get a topic of specialization, because when I first came into multifamily, and it hasn't really changed much the last time I shadowed a role, but I shadowed every role from leasing agent to maintenance manager to property manager to regional. And I did that again about a year and a half ago. And so I feel like there hasn't been much change in the sense that like your leasing agent has like 20 hats on. Your maintenance manager has like 20 hats on. Your property manager has 20 hats on. When you start to really think about who owns the social media piece, if you have a marketing team that's centralized or regionalized, they probably are the ones that are helping drive content, but they can only do so much to spray it, like spread it out. And so when I think about like tools like Sochi or Reputation, like reputation.com and all these different like social media tools, like they create this beautiful library of resources, but you can only personalize it so much, so that like the stock photography is going to get nuts. Like it's something that continues on. Of like, I see the same building. There's like this white building that's used on almost every single stock photography, and I've seen it for years. And I find it really funny that like that stuff hasn't changed in so long. And it's the same thing for social, is that like you don't have the capacity to work on it, so you're going to default to the standard. And the standards, like marketing teams are going to create the resources for you, but they can't personalize it to a degree because it, again, limited resources there as well. So I would say if you can start specializing your property teams to where maybe there's one social media manager for every, I don't know, like 10 properties, 20 properties, like whatever makes sense in terms of like the workload. They could coordinate events, they could coordinate the social campaigns for it, they could drive around and do the actual photography so that they could actually take pictures at events. That kind of stuff I think goes a long way if you have like a central, like a single role that's responsible for it, versus like expecting the on-site team to create the brand presence even more so. Like they'll own the brand and they'll drive the brand forward, but they won't be able to like do the marketing on top of the leasing, on top of the virtual tours or like the tours themselves. So there's a lot of stuff that they got to like pick and choose. And
yeah. Probably something along the lines of collaboration between those departments, like the marketing, and they could use pieces of content that the site could film for 30 seconds, a minute, short videos, send them over, and they could tweak them and they could make them into unique pieces of content. I'm thinking that would be very valuable.
Yeah, if Sochi had an app where a maintenance person could film a piece of content and upload it to the app, and then the marketing team reviews it and approves it, that could be really cool. Or even the leasing team, like if they're in an event, they're taking all the photos, and obviously like quality is going to vary. Like I know some people that are going to put their thumb over the camera halfway, and so they're not going to be good photos. But there's also people that just take beautiful photos. And so if you can have something where you upload it to a central spot, you have your marketing team approve it once a week, and then it gets scheduled, like that kind of stuff I think could be really cool to have like one tool that just does it for you, and helps with the approval process. Could be really interesting.
The next topic I want to touch on, Trevor, is personal branding. We're all brands. We individuals, we're also brands. You are a brand whether you want it or not. So what I want to ask you is, how do you see the importance of being intentional in building your personal brand in 2023?
Oh, I definitely think that if you are if you're at like any level role, I can't think of a role level that you shouldn't start checking out where your brand is at. So like the first thing that I did when I got into marketing is I bought a domain for my name. I bought trevorpark.com. I held on to that thing for probably 6 years before I even did something with it. Like I didn't do anything with it at the time. And then I started adding, like I put my resume on. It was just a very simple like page. And then from there, I started like connecting with people, and it made more sense to start sending them to a website where I could brand it and make it more like me than just a standard PDF resume. Like I don't look at resumes anymore. I think those are like so outdated and so not worth looking at. But if you can create a website for $30 and send me the link to that and show me your personality, I think that goes a lot farther than the resumes these days. And that's what like creating a personal brand on LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram, like those kind of elements go so much farther now, is because you can see more of that person, and they pass like do I want to have a beer with this person? Do I want to have lunch with this person? Do I want to work with this person? Like those kind of elements, I think, can't be said in a resume. And like even in the interview process, it's always tough to kind of get a full gauge of who the person is. So yeah, personal brand is going to go really far, especially when people are wanting to make more shifts into leadership roles, if they're wanting to make more shifts into different companies. Being able to leverage some sort of like online presence is going to go super far.
Yeah, I want to pick next. I want to pick on something that you said earlier on, but it kind of connects with personal branding. And this is networking. You mentioned a situation that you've been in the past where you were in between, full-time assignments. And in order for you to fill that void and, stay busy and, make income and keep things going, you were able to get, all sorts of, little projects that you worked on. And you were like up to 40 or 50 projects at a time, juggling at the same time in between jobs. So how were you able to accomplish that? I'm assuming that networking played an important part in it. And then I would like for you to speak on the importance of networking. How important is to spend time and to build meaningful reports with other people that you never met or you might never meet in your life, but collaborate and network with them.
I got involved in a lot of different organizations, and that's like pre-COVID, it was really easy to do networking because you would show up to a happy hour, you'd show up to a Tapas and Topics, you'd show up to an association event or a trade show, and I'm pretty lucky. I'm 6'9", I'm hard to miss, and I seek people out. And so I do my research of like, these are 5 people that I'm going to meet at this event. And if I don't, then I failed the event. And I've never missed a mark. So I always make sure that like, if I'm going to somewhere and I know who's going to be attending, I'm introducing myself to those people. So that's been the best way that I've networked. And then I also just, I'm kind of a weird extrovert in the sense that like I force myself into into people's spaces, and I'm just like, hey, I'm Trevor. I just want to introduce myself, and then I'll pop out. But like, hi, nice to meet you. Let's catch up later, and then I duck out. But like, create some sort of awareness of myself beyond like just being able to see me has been really important.
Next topic, it's related to the previous two, and it's influencers in the industry. I wanted to get your take on this. Do you see the value in companies, whether they're management companies or, on a vendor side, hiring industry influencers, people that already have a personal brand that's very obvious, it's very out there, they're very well known and respected. Do you see any value in hiring those type of influencers to help them boost their company brand and actually attract great talent to their company?
So this is where I'm torn. So if you hire somebody that has a really big following and brand presence, you should come into the expectation that 50% of their role is going to be maintaining that brand and helping elevate your brand because you're tied to it. I've never been hired because I am well known, but I've been hired because I can network really well, and the people that I've networked with, those are the ones that have been able to get me through the door. But in terms of like presence, I would say that's been a really tough piece, and it's something that I've heard more and more people vocalize of like, hey, I have 20,000 followers, I have 100,000 followers. I want to still work full time for a company, and I want to tie my brand to that, but more often than not, it's coming in at a certain role. And so you might have somebody that's like a regional or an asset manager that has a couple like 20,000, 10,000, whatever followers, but they're so bogged down with their actual day-to-day work that they're not able to maintain a brand presence. And so it kind of trickles down. And so you have this like give and take of how much brand do I do? How much actual work do I do? And then figuring that out. So if you hire somebody with the expectation that they have a big brand, make sure that their role has capacity to handle both like the brand ambassadorship and creating content that ties in the company brand and their brands, but then also being able to do whatever role you need them to do outside of that. So I think there's definitely a balance, but I think there is importance in hiring people that can help elevate your brand if it needs it.
Do you think that companies in 2023, whether they're on a supplier side or on a property management side, they will consider becoming more intentional in making those type of hires? Do you see that possibility happening in 2023?
If we could start seeing numbers in terms of like what's the return that this person's role is going to get us, that will help push it forward. I don't know if we're quite there yet to see a big push in influencer marketing because there's so little data that supports it. But if we could start showing that, like, I hired Sally leasing agent who has 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I hired her specifically to promote our brand to property managers, that's where I'm going to try and connect the dots. How many property managers then reached out to our company for demos? How many of them signed deals? How many of them became lifelong customers? That kind of stuff. That's where we can start to kind of generate the return. Same thing on the management side is I hired this like brand ambassador, this influencer. How many applications did we get to come work for this company? Like I'd be really interested that like Tony at RPM, how many people have come to work for RPM because they're aware of Tony's brand, or Moshe, like how many people have come to work for Sage, or even your company, like how many people have come to work for you because they're aware of the content that you're putting. Like that kind of return is really interesting because then you can say, okay, Moshe brought in these 7 leasing agents and they leased up these 12 properties, which generated this kind of revenue. Like that's all stuff that can tie back to Moshe's efforts. And so being able to like tie those efforts back into a dollar amount, I think is the way that we're going to move that role forward. But until then, I think it's going to be a little bit slower.
I can't speak for Tony or Moshe, but I think probably what you're hearing right now, it's in line with what you're gonna hear from them. It's in line with what I'm about to say. I had a specific experience not too long ago where, I worked for a company that was growing fast. So when you grow fast, you don't just grow, most of your apartments will not keep up with that growth. They're coming from behind, they're trying to. So in other words, the recruiting department was not actually a department. We had a recruiter, but then, there were so many needs to recruit. And I stepped in and I helped. I offered myself to help. I did marketing, I advertised to my network. In a 4-month period, I was able to recommend 6 separate individuals that I recommended more than 6, but 6 of them got hired in 4 months based on my recommendations, based on my connections and my network. I brought them in. They were all hired, and they were all in management positions. So that's just, I speak for myself. I'm sure that if you would ask Tony or Moshe, they'll probably have similar responses, or even better than what I just said.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think there's a way that you could almost see like what's the impact that they've had on the role since coming on, and you can start to attribute even more touch points to that impact that you were the originating source on. So that's really cool.
There's way to track, simply by the candidate saying, well, I was recommended by Trevor, simply saying that, and take a note. Or there's ways that you and I both know, like smart leagues that you could give someone when they do advertising on their page, for example. The leads they're coming based on that link, they're going to be attributed to the person. So there are KPIs and ways for companies to gauge the influence of the person, how much the person influences. You mentioned you mentioned Tony's name, and I think he's the best example that we have currently in a multifamily space of someone that's actually not just helping with the company brand. He's a driver. He drives the brand. He drives attention. He drives everything. Like, we're talking about the industry is here, and he's like right here, and he's driving. Like, he gets so much positive attention and so much positive feedback, and there's so many people attracted by Tony's brand that they really want to go work for RPM because of Tony. Because of Tony, for no other reasons. Let's just be clear. So with someone at that level of influence that he has, I bet that this could drive, really, like literally just drive culture, drive a company into spaces that they never saw possible before.
Yeah, but even thinking on like people that maybe are not at the executive level, but are like even entry level. If I had an employee that was just a rock star employee doing extremely well, and we had a couple roles that we wanted to almost clone that person to put into that role, I'd offer like a referral bonus. I'd offer some sort of like incentive to have that person put their name on it and say, hey, we got this open role. I'm loving what this is doing. I'll get a referral bonus too as well. Like, I'd love to have you on the team, and like really drive that. But like making it so that if that employee sticks around for 6 months, then the bonus pays out, and that's when you get your bonus, because they've shown some longevity and they've made it past like the entry level stage. I think it could be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely hopeful to see moves like that in our space, and see how they're panning out for different companies. I really think that there's some players out there that will really drive so much positivity towards a company brand, and just be a complete game changer for the way the company operates. Their pipeline, everything, culture, everything. They could influence literally so many things. A single person.
Yeah.
We touched a little bit. We talked a little bit about influencer marketing, Trevor, and I want to touch on the part of influencer marketing that's something similar that's been around. I'm thinking Instagram. On Instagram, influencer marketing has been around for years. It's very popular. You have influencers, helping push, different products, different services. They're helping with sales. Do you see a trend happening in a multifamily industry as well? In other words, a company like yours or a management company associated themselves with an influencer with a main purpose of driving attention to the services they're selling, they're offering?
So I guess it's kind of two-pronged. From the management side, I think what kind of needs to start happening is it's the management company that's driving the influencer versus the property. Because what's really interesting to me is when I think about a property, it's a singular brand and it's a very isolated product set. it would be like a limited release of like one of Nike's shoes. Like Nike is the management company, the shoe is the building, and like that has like an exclusive release, like get in early, pre-leasing now, buy your shoe, get your kicks, like come in early. The influencer can really do a great job like one time for that property. For longevity, it's really tough because like once they hit 92-93% occupancy, like that influencer's role is kind of done for 9-12 months, however long the lease lengths are. Like that's really kind of like a splash in the pan. But if you have an influencer that's tied to like I think about like Central and Marriott coming in, or Greystar, and this like adoption of Airbnb coming more into multifamily. There's a lot of opportunity where the management company owns the influencer and then sells the product from there. And with this travel culture still like really on the rise, if you have an influencer that's talking about like, you should Airbnb at this spot in Austin, Texas next week, it is stunning. It is awesome. You'll get the vibe of Greystar. You'll get the vibe of Central, and it will give you all of the Instagram feels. And then they start talking about the property that's in Nashville, and then they talk about the property that's in Seattle. Like then the reach of that influencer is so much farther and impactful than just like, you should lease at this property in Austin, and you hear from them consistently for 9 months, but then they jump to something else. Like we had 2 influencers that I worked with that they worked solely for our property for 9 months. We gave them room and board as an exchange. But then after that, they went to a competing management company and started doing the same exact thing, which meant that they took that following and moved it to the other management company. And so if you can keep that influencer central to your core brand and have them share it out, like that's where I think there's a lot of impact there that you could do the selling on social.
Trevor, the next section of our conversation is with I have some rapid fire questions for you. Ready?
Yep, hit me.
Books. What are your favorite books? Professional, fiction, nonfiction?
Oh, I got 3 for you actually, and they're on my desk, so I don't forget to read them, and I will hold them up so people can see the covers. So bear with me because I am really into reading lately. First one, I just had a newborn, so she's coming up on 3 months. So
congratulations.
Mom's on Call and The Good Sleeper have been books that I'm like obsessing over to try and make sure that my kid can go to sleep. I don't have the book sleeve on it because I'm actively reading this one for a second time. It's Unreasonable Hospitality. It is a really, really good read, and just how you can create meaningful moments. And it's actually going to be kind of a center point on the AIM roundtable that I'm hosting with Katie Kane, Cynthia Powers, Laurel Zacher, and Chrissy Ficker. Like we're going to have a pretty good group there. And so I think this is going to be a really good central book that we'll talk about there. And I really like cooking. It's like a big passion of mine, and focusing on like Hispanic and Mexican cuisine. If you know me, tequila is like my love language. And I'm currently going through masa, which is just, it's corn. So kind of boring, but you can do a lot of really cool things with it. And so those are the 3 books I'm reading.
That's fantastic. Those are great shares, and in so many different, like various categories. So I love that you're kind of spreading your time and attention in so many different, like I won't say opposite because they're not opposite, but they're different parts of life. So I love that. Thank you for the share. Next question: how did a failure or an apparent failure set you up for future success?
Let's see. My personal favorite. I left my job in multifamily for a big price tag, like big dollar amount. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I really like I'm getting to a salary level that I've always wanted. Like, this is great. Um, it was a very toxic work environment, and I just got completely run dry, and ultimately ended up getting fired from it. So I consider that being a big failure. It just was very tough for me to maintain culture there, and so was let go. And it was kind of a mutual thing, because I was going to be putting in my notice for it, and jumped back into multifamily and hadn't looked back. And I think that failure, like thinking just focused on dollar amount and not focused on culture, not focused on people. I mean, the industry in multifamily is one that's really hard to compete with, and I've seen a lot of different industries. Multifamily is one where the connectivity is just endless, and so that really helped me resonate with, like, oh, this is an industry worth sticking in and staying in. So that failure helped me learn that. So I haven't left since.
Next question, Trevor. What advice would you have for a young person getting ready to enter the real world? Whether they just finish high school or they just finish college, they're ready to enter, they're ready to rent their first home or buy their first home, get their first job, and so on and so forth.
Be patient and hungry. I would say not everybody's going to be leaving the workforce with like a 6-figure job, and it's not the nature of the beast. I went to college for 4 years. I would say the best things that came out of my college experience was the fact that I developed a strong work ethic, because I met my wife there, who would not let me miss class. And that's the best thing, other than the people that I met in college, that I took away from it. The thing that I went into college thinking is that, like, it showed that I could do something for 4 years, like that, like consistent for 4 years. And that's kind of how I took college. Coming out of that, though, I would say be patient for that perfect role. Take the jobs that you might not necessarily like to do, but you can do, and do them well, and like exceed in those. My first job out of college, my wife and I moved down to California, and my first job was cleaning a gallery. Like that's all I did, is that I would just tidy up, and I would adjust the art to make sure everything was straight, sweep the floors, take a couple pictures here and there, and that was like my first gig until I landed a couple event stuff. But like, be comfortable being uncomfortable, so that you can really find the role that you want to be in and build it out for yourself.
Trevor, in the last 3 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Oh, it's actually Mike got me on this focus of being where your feet are. And I have this really toxic trait that I'm constantly thinking about 70 different things at once, which is great from a work standpoint, because I'm able to pull in a bunch of ideas and do stuff. From a family oriented and being like present with my family, it's been tough. And so really focusing on where I'm at in that moment is kind of like my big focus for the year, is like being present and being balanced with the two. It's not an easy task, but like being present is probably the best trait that I would say, wherever you're at, be there.
Trevor, when you feel that you're losing focus or you're overwhelmed, you're feeling overwhelmed, what do you do to get back on track?
Oof. I really like meditating. I do about 15 minutes in the morning now, and try and like maintain some sort of like centering myself, processing what I'm going to do. But the biggest thing is like create lists. I have notebooks upon notebooks that are just full of lists of things that I need to do. And it's every day I start a new list, and these are the things that I'm going to tackle for the day. Whatever didn't get tackled from the day before, I find a way to move it over. And yeah, so lists are going to be the biggest way that it keeps me from being too anxious, because I'm aware of what's in my scope, and I'm able to deal with that right then and there. Anything that's not on that list, I'm not dealing with that day.
The next question is kind of a broad question, but I do wanted to get your take of how do you see the future of marketing, starting with some current about to become future trends in marketing.
Yeah. I think the way that we come up with ideas is going to drastically change with the evolution of API and AI, and being able to have ChatGPT take an initial idea that we have and build it out into something with more substance and meat with little effort on our part can help take us from being like just an idea person to getting actually like moving on stuff. And I really see that happening a lot more and more in marketing. Like for me, like I came up with, I think it was like 40 some odd prompts with ChatGPT, and I entered those prompts into the system and it kicked back out the like 6 campaigns that I wanted to really run with this year that we're going to be testing out and seeing how it works. But it's helping me like specifically like get past the idea piece, and it helps me get more substance in that concept and then moving forward with it because I can see the route going forward even more. So I think the use of AI is going to really enhance a lot of our roles, not replace. I don't think there's ever going to be an opportunity for AI to completely replace what we do, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for it to enhance what we're doing in a really like thoughtful way. So I'm excited for what AI and that kind of stuff is going to bring for us.
You mentioned more trends that you're working on this year. What should we expect from Trevor in 2023 from a trend standpoint or project standpoint, not necessarily trends?
Yeah.
But what other projects like the one with trends that you just very successfully completed?
So the next big one that we're kicking off is the Leasing Enablement Guide Volume 2, and we did it one way this last year, and I think it had a decent impact. I think the way that we're going to change it up is going to really kind of turn some heads and really make people think about how we build content. And so that one I'm really looking forward to, and I'm hoping that we get started on that in the next week. The other big one is how we do events, and sneak peek. We're starting a roadshow that's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit unique to the multifamily industry, and it's going to really hopefully draw a lot of attention and get people wanting to be involved to either listen or speak at these roadshow locations. And so we're going to be announcing that probably in February. We're going to be locking in dates in the next couple of weeks and kicking it off. So that's the big one that I'm really excited for is changing up how we do events.
I love it. I love everything that you just said. So I'll be definitely on the lookout.
Cool.
Your first project, like really knock it out of the park. Like first, the Trends project is what I meant by the first project.
Because it's going to be tough to beat that. Yeah, it's going to be really tough to beat that.
I think you'll be surprised. I think that this is just the beginning for you and for your team, because there's a hunger for this type of stuff. Like it hasn't existed. It has not existed in a space. Typically, it's each tribe for themselves, and occasionally that produces great events and great ideas. I won't say it doesn't, but then the value of bringing 10, 15, 20 specialists like across the board from the industry and just bringing them together, even if it's not a physical get together, but like putting their minds together, that could be huge. That could be like a rocket ship. It could be an amazing thing.
I really think there's a lot of potential in what we can do to collaborate, and I think those barriers are getting less and less. Like the way that we can interact and understand the nuances and differences between companies, because when you stack apples to apples, with like just CRM space, there is so much variation between the Fujis and the Galas and the Cosmic Crisps and the Honey, like the Granny Smiths and all of those. Like there's so much differences in all the different CRMs in this space. So really understanding like what your product does and knowing your market specifically, and then making sure that your market is very much aware of the scope of your capabilities. I think that's where it really draws in that audience. And so being more open to like saying, yeah, we don't do that, but they do, is going to be what turns us from a salesperson to a resource.
Trevor, it was so great to have you on today. Amazing conversation, truly enjoy. I could have gone for a couple more hours easily. Yeah, unfortunately for now, we're wrapping up right here. I'm hoping for an opportunity to do a second, third episode down the road with you if you have interest. I do want to give you the opportunity though in closing to say something you wish you would have said during the conversation you didn't have the chance to say, or to maybe answer a question that you wish I would have asked. Just something to wrap our conversation up with.
Oh, let me just do a quick look at the list of questions. Actually, the importance of meaningful work. I think that's something that we, as a company, I am really happy to be at Rent Dynamics. Like this project that we do is our supportive pride and supporting people's differences in the industry. And it's something that I don't know why, but some companies are still hesitant to show their support and vocalize their support. And I think by just being silent, it's not going to work anymore. And I'm really happy to be a part of a company that allows me to share my own differences as well as support the differences of my teammates and our industry. And so that to me is really meaningful work, like being able to make sure that the work that you are doing day in, day out is supporting people and lifting people up. And you can't do that if you aren't doing it equally and you aren't doing it wholeheartedly. And so that to me is if your company is able to do that, then that's huge. And so there's a lot of change happening, but I think there's still a lot more to come.
That's a great way to wrap up our conversation. Thank you again for coming, for being a guest on our show. I hope that we have more opportunities down the road to continue this conversation.
Same. I really appreciate you and your willingness to chat with me, and also just your voice in the industry has been amazing. So thank you again.
Everybody, thank you very much for watching us today. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.